When you create a workspace in Tinybird, all of the data sources and pipes within it are represented in a file structure that we call a Tinybird Data Project. You can use the Tinybird CLI to generate new files or pull existing ones from the server, and then edit them in your favorite code editor, manage them in source control, and then push them back to Tinybird to make them live. In this screencast, I'll show the basics of those files in a code editor, in this case VS Code. The goal here is to help you get familiar with the file structure and cover some of the ins and outs of Tinybird Data Project files so you can start iterating your data projects more quickly in your code editor of choice. Let's get to it. So when you initialize a Tinybird data project in the CLI, a few directories will be created, including one for data sources, pipes, endpoints, and tests. Don't worry about tests for now. We'll cover that in a later screencast. Now, to get some files to work on, let's pull some resources from an existing workspace that was built using the Tinybird Web Analytics Starter Kit. Once authenticated, we can pull some files and use the auto flag to drop them in their respective directories. So now if we list the contents of the data sources and pipes directories, we'll see we have some resources in there. Now keep in mind that Tinybird will put all pipe files in the pipes directory by default, even if those pipes are published as endpoints. In fact, the only reason there are two folders is so that you can logically organize larger data projects. Functionally, it doesn't matter where you keep those .pipe files. Do what works for you. Now let's start by opening a data source file in VS Code so we can get a look at its anatomy. You'll notice that there is syntax highlighting thanks to the Tinybird VS Code extension. If you use VS Code and you're working in Tinybird, you should go download it from the marketplace. Now, here's what everything in this file means. First of all, every data source and pipe will take its name from the file name. If you change the file name and push it to the server, it will create a new resource. Now you'll also notice this version number at the top. The version statement allows you to version data sources and pipes so you can iterate development and push changes to the server without changing names and references. I'll get into more detail on how to version your resources and integrate with source control in a different screencast. So you can see and edit the description of the data source here, and we recommend good descriptions, especially if you plan to share your data sources. And then down here you have the data source schema. Now each column in the table is represented as a line in the schema, and the syntax includes the name of the column, its data type, how it was created from the ingestion source, and if a default value is defined, the default value. Additionally, you'll find the ClickHouse table engine, partition key, sorting key, and time to live definitions at the bottom. Now bear in mind that the only non-versioned edits you can make to a data source file is to add a column. If you want to edit the table schema or engine configuration for a data source, you must either create a new version, delete and recreate the data source, or create a new data source with a new name. Keep in mind how that will affect your downstream dependencies. Now, let's go take a look at a .pipe file. Like a data source, a pipe gets its name from a .pipe file name. Up top, you can include a description of the pipe, and then you start to get into the nodes of SQL queries that make up the pipe. The node syntax includes the node name, description, and the SQL. Now, every subsequent node can query over prior nodes by referencing the name. Now, pipes can be published as API endpoints or as materialized views. By default, the last node in a .pipe file will be published as an API endpoint when you push it to the server, unless the type is explicitly defined as materialized. So let's take a look at a pipe file that gets materialized so you can see how that looks. So this file, analytics-sessions.pipe, defines some SQL that gets materialized as a new data source. The structure of this file is almost like a hybrid between a pipe file and a data source file. You'll see the same node definitions, and then at the bottom, you'll see that this pipe is defined as a materialized type, and then you have the name of the resulting data source, plus its table schema, engine, and configuration are defined here just as in a data source file. Now, when this file is pushed to the server, it will automatically generate a new materialized data source from the pipe, though you'll have to issue some additional commands to populate it with pre-existing data. And that's the basic anatomy of Tinybird Data Project files. Stay tuned for more screencasts on versioning, tests, and managing Tinybird data projects in source control. I'll see you there.